Let's talk about the UGC's new equity rules. New equity rules 2026. And the agenda is to control campuses. The agenda is to control students. The agenda is to control the minds of the students. And the agenda is to ensure that if the faculty doesn't listen to them, that it doesn't listen to the government, the faculty is also taught a lesson. Namaskar. Welcome to another episode of Editorial. Let's talk about the UGC's new equity rules. New equity rules 2026. You see, the concept of this new equity rules is primarily because there are definitely, which is I think all of us agree, that there are caste-based discrimination that happens in campus. Now, to curb this caste-based discrimination, the government of India has brought about these rules. Now, let me tell you, the story is not as simple. There was already a rule in place which was put into place in 2012. UGC Equity Rules 2012. Now, 2012 to 2020, there was a huge in terms of percentage, there was a large increase in caste-based discrimination in the campuses. So, the Supreme Court had also pointed it out to the government. In fact, they had rapped the government saying that kya chal raha hai? So many incidents happening in the campuses, the percentage has gone up in the campus. What are you doing about it? So the government says, acha aisa hai. So then the government, what they did is they brought about very strict rules, which I'm going to discuss with you. Very strict rules, which they called as the UGC Equity Regulation Rules 2026. Now, this rule was brought about with the understanding, like I told you, let us put some figures in place. According to a figure submitted to the Parliament and the Supreme Court, complainants increased from 118.4% from, that is 173 cases in 2019-20 to 370 cases in 23-24. So from 173 cases, it has increased to 379 cases, the number of complaints and cases in like I told you, dealing with caste discrimination in the campuses. So the Supreme Court said and the government said, listen, let us take some steps on this. Now, a lot of critics say, it is good. You see, these steps should be taken. We should ensure that our campuses are free from caste discrimination. That there is no doubt about it, and that's a good thing. But why are you making such a big hue and cry about it? Because while the percentage and all look like 118% increase and all that, it looks big. But the actual difference is 173 cases to 378 cases. The actual figure is not all that big. But yeah, I mean, obviously, one has to tighten. Even if there is one has to tighten the rules. There is no doubt about it. But the problem really starts when you get into what the government is planning. You see, the government is planning something called as an equity squad. Now, what is an equity squad? An equity squad, let me tell you, is a body that can act without formal complaints, summon students and faculties, access private institutional cards, and recommend punitive action even before the guilt is established. Vice Chancellor and principals are personally liable if they hesitate. Compliance is no longer optional. It is enforced through fear of institutional punishment. Supporters call this empowerment. Critics call this overreach. You see, now let us understand. Once again I start. There is caste discrimination? Yes, there is. Should we do something about it? Yes, we should. We did something about it in 2012, but according to the Supreme Court and according to the government, it was not effective enough. So what the government has done is the government has taken step, according to them, they have taken step to ensure it is more effective. Now, in the process of making this effective, what they have really done, I think, has played politics on this particular issue, and they are trying to play politics, and possibly dangerous politics, in our campuses. Let's start with the first one. What the government did? The government said that no, it is not just about SC and ST. Let us also get OBC into place. So now it is about the equity rules are for SC, STs and OBCs. So somewhere down the line, elections are on. The biggest vote bank for Bharatiya Janata Party are the OBCs. So they have brought OBCs also into gamut. Number one. Number two, like I said, the squad, the equity squad. You see two things. First of all, it is very imperative for the government to have absolute control of the campuses. Control of the campuses so that students also understand, behave like possibly the way media or other institutions behave. Students also behave and accept everything that the government says. So it is imperative for them to control the students. Secondly, it is also important for them to control the students is because the national education policy demands that the center controls university. So the center controls what the students are taught. The central controls how the students are taught. The central controls and ensures that the students never question the state. And if there are teachers, there are principals, there are faculty that are allowing this to happen or to some extent encourage open speech, freedom of expression, possibly use the thing called unity squad to ensure that they are crushed. This is what a lot of critics say. And to some extent, I too believe that this could be one of the reasons why a rule where the number of cases has increased from 178 to, let me give you the exact figure. The actual physical cases have increased from 173 cases to 378 cases. The government is taking such a big step. And of course, the government says, "Hum kya karega?" Supreme Court ne bola hai. So I believe the government is using the Supreme Court verdict to ensure that it actually executes its own agenda. And the agenda is to control campuses. The agenda is to control students. The agenda is to control the minds of the students. And the agenda is to ensure that if the faculty doesn't listen to them, that is, doesn't listen to the government, the faculty is also taught a lesson. Now, let me come back to the rule. What does this squad do? This squad can, like I read out to you, can take action against you or start an investigation against a student or a faculty without a complaint. The squad feels that this faculty has insulted a OBC or a SC or a ST, they can start action. The squad can take action against a student, a faculty, if they are convinced that that student or that faculty has acted or said or did anything against a scheduled caste or a scheduled tribe or an OBC. Now imagine the chances of this law being misused. Imagine what are the chances. And what happens if this law is misused? You see, equity per se is basically not one-sided, because one-sided is not equity, no. If the decision is one-sided, if the entire rule is one-sided, how can it be equity? So this particular rule seems to be one-sided because it talks about OBCs, SC and ST, which it should, and we should ensure that there is no discrimination. But what about a general category student if this rule is misused against him or her? Who protects him or her? What is there for his protection or her protection? So if somebody, because of some political reason, decides to say that, oh, he insulted me and I am a scheduled caste, scheduled tribe or OBC, and this particular person who is in general category insulted me, and if there is action taken against him and the allegation is false, what happens to the person who makes that allegation? Does this law protect? As of today, it doesn't. As of today, it doesn't protect. And that's the biggest worry of this law. So if it doesn't protect, then it is almost like a Gestapo. It is almost like an enforcement directorate, ED in campuses now. You talk against the government, you talk against the establishment, you say anything against the establishment, you promote any thought against the establishment, or if there is a faculty who promotes free speech, that's it. That's it. The squad can come into action. And the squad can say, you said something, you called him so and so names, so you are into trouble. You are suspended, you are arrested, you are whatever. And look at the powers. The powers are sweeping. Like I said, I will read once again. The bodies can act without a formal complaint, summon students and faculties, access private institution records, and recommend punitive actions even before guilt is established. Punitive action. That's the problem. That's the problem. Vice chancellors and principals are personally liable if they hesitate. Compliance is no longer optional. This is almost exactly like putting an enforcement director inside campuses. They will pick you up and take you, and then you can decide in the next few years, you can figure out, prove yourself that you are innocent. It is not that they have to prove you are guilty. You have to prove they are innocent. Because that's more or less the way I see this law. And that's why it's dangerous. It curbs freedom. We saw something very recently in Jawaharlal Nehru University. What those kids said is not correct. What those kids said is violence. That is correct. Whatever, however you want to interpret that and give it some other turning, it was not correct. That is not what you should teach kids. I agree to that. But the fact remains that, therefore, an FIR against those kids. That too is not correct. Now, this particular rule where you are actually ensuring that there is a huge control, fear in campuses. Fear of what? Fear of this particular squad. And who does the squad control? The government. So fear against who? The government. Which kid will dare do a protest? Which kid will dare go against the government, show his dissent, call out if anything is wrong, at least he or she feels that anything is wrong in the governance? Which kid will do that? It will finish, not only finish off their career, it will finish off their lives. They could be behind bars. So that's the problem. And secondly, it is not going to help the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe and OBC. You know why? Because this will widen the rift between the general category and the reserved category. It will widen the rift. And when I say reserved category, I again say SC, ST and OBC. It will widen the rift. It is not going to get them together. Is this how you genuinely want to ensure that the kids come together? That there is unity in the campuses? That caste discrimination is eliminated? Is this how it's supposed to be? Like I told you last time, and I got a lot of people who wrote to me that, I'm naive and all that stuff. Like I told you last time, you see, rules and coercion doesn't solve anything. Till date in the history of the world, coercion and forced rules has never brought about social behavioral change. Never brought about social behavioral change. Social behavioral change were efforts taken by reformers. Efforts taken by reformers, where it is brought about slowly, but it is then brought about surely. Because those reformers genuinely wanted to bring about social behavioral change. This is not about social behavioral change. This is about achieving a political end. Political end by ensuring that there is absolute control in the campuses, which ensures that the youth are in your control, which ensures that there is hardly any dissent to the government. This is what I see in this particular case. This is what I see as far as this particular rule, UGC Equity Rules of 2026 is concerned. Otherwise, such restrictions, such coercion, I don't think was required. This is the point I wanted to make. Till I see you next time. That's tomorrow at 10. Namaskar.